Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I wanted to make a fairly quick video today. I have finished my qualification that you guys now have been doing for the last year and a half, and I managed to get merits or distinctions in every module, which I'm really happy about considering I had so much COVID work and so much else going on over the last year. I'm really happy with the outcome. And I thought about making this video. In fact, I had it planned in for the day of my results, and then I saw it as like, if I did okay, I'd film it, and if I didn't, I wouldn't. But just to share very quickly some of my 5 top study tips for studying when you're doing it as a distance learning course and you're working full time. I think for me, I had a lot of study techniques that work quite well if you're in a scenario where your main focus is to complete your study rather than work as your primary focus, study comes next, and then life comes after that. And I think it's a very different vibe. I've now done 3 qualifications which take like 18 months each in this way, and I feel like I can maybe share a couple of things that have helped me to you guys, and maybe if you're planning on doing a distance learning course in a similar way whilst working full time, this might be of use. The first one I would say is like my must do if I'm planning on doing something. I'm sure I'll do other courses at some point in future, but this is my like top tip that I don't move on when I'm doing it, which is when you've booked onto the course and you've had like your course induction or you've had like your introductory session, sit down, figure out when you want to finish the course by. So if, like, for example, the course I just finished was like, it will take 18 months to 2 years. I wanted to finish it like within 18 months. So when I started, I'd figure out how many learning hours that equates to each week. So most courses will give you like the total amount of learning hours you'd need to complete the course. And that means from day dot, you know how many hours each week you need to complete. I also think with distance learning, unless you have one of those learning providers that's quite on it and gives you deadlines, you're quite often making your own deadlines. And for me, setting deadlines for myself from the start, as if it was like a taught course, helped enormously to kind of sense make as I was going along about, am I ahead, am I behind where I need to be, how's it feeling, am I kind of on track? So whilst that might seem a bit intimidating, that when you've just started you need to think about the end, I think you then pace yourself out throughout the period of study rather than not really thinking about it, doing it as you can, and then suddenly finding toward the end you have loads that you haven't gotten to yet. The next thing I would say that links with planning in your course is to proactively plan in breaks. Now, the way I study is fairly intensive, so everyone will differ in terms of what they want to do. But if I'm thinking about doing a course for a year and a half, I'll try and have 1 week where I'm not studying for every 6 months I'm studying, and I'll be studying the rest of the time. And I try to do that as annual leave weeks if I can, so that I have 3 weeks totally off across the year and a half period from work and from study. But you could obviously do it over a longer time period and build in more break time if you're happy to, and some people work better having more regular breaks. That isn't like, I'm not studying every single day for the rest of those like 5 months, 6 months minus a day. But I think the ability to set in regular periods where you're not studying that fit with your plan, so you're not expected to produce any work and you just have that week off, is another thing that can help you kind of keep the momentum. And whilst I chose to put them as annual leave weeks for 2 of them and 1 was a work week, it can be quite nice having a week that's just your normal work and having a free weekend at the end as well. But I think you have to do a little bit of balance. My balance probably isn't as far as it needs to be, but I always just want to get it done. That's like my main like motivation is to finish whatever study I'm doing. The next thing is one that I'm always really happy I do, and it's something that like I've seen Tom when he did his study he didn't do, and I was like, no, which is if there's a portfolio at any point of your course, please just fill it in every week. Like, it takes maybe 5-10 minutes just to update what you've done in a week. If you do it in one go, oh my god, it's like a 3-day trying to remember everything you've done. It's a nightmare. So if you have a portfolio or like a learning record or like evidencing how you completed learning outcomes, this is like, I cannot recommend enough. just add a little bit every single week, even if you don't think it's that important. Like I needed to write 3,000 words for my portfolio, and I ended up with like 18,000 words of like single things in the week. But it meant when I finished, I could just go through and choose the ones that best met the learning outcomes, and I could just copy paste it. And then I did a whole module in like 20 minutes at the end, because I'd done it all. I'd already done it, and I didn't need to add anything else in. And yeah, the time, it does add up like a little bit every week when you're doing it, but honestly it's not the same as the stress of trying to pull together a portfolio right at the end. The next thing that I find really helpful is to set yourself regular study time in your week. So I've done this a number of different ways, like over my qualifications. I always ended up with about 8.5 hours per week to do of study. And I tried it 2 separate ways. So one way was do a full day on a Saturday or a Sunday, like a full 7.5 hour working day, with 1 hour to do on the other day of the weekend. So you kind of, all your evenings are your own, you finish work, you finish for the day, but you know you're essentially working a 6-day week and doing a little bit on Sunday. Or, and I twist between the two as which I prefer, I'd split that out. So if I have, like I work 5 days a week, I'd do like 5 hours in the week and then 3.5 hours-ish on the Saturday, and then I know it's done by Saturday midway through. To be honest, I flip between the two because it totally depends on how busy my work is as to which I feel more up for and which feels like I get more time. Especially if work is more busy or you're doing extra hours, or like it's just very emotionally or physically or mentally demanding work. I think it can be really tough to then add on like a whole another hour when you finish of like quite intense like mental work. But if your workload is like more manageable and your kind of stress levels, as it were, are like fairly low from doing work, I prefer having more time at the weekends. But I think it's important, whatever it looks like for you, it might be early mornings, it's not early mornings for me, but it might be whatever, that you set it regularly and that you're committed to doing it, but also reviewing it so that if it isn't working for whatever reason, you can amend how those hours fit. And I found for a couple of weeks when I was doing this qualification, I strayed away from it. I felt a bit tired, I kind of gave myself an extra break, and there were like 2 weeks where I really wasn't that productive, and I should have just recognised I probably need another week off, and if it ends up being 18 months and a week, who cares? But I didn't. So I think like checking in with yourself about whether or not you actually do need a break, and if it's a week, is that going to make a substantial difference to how long you want to take to do your qualification? So that is, yeah, that's another tip. I think I've just got one more to share with you. Yeah, so the final one that I have to share, I've written it down in a bit of like a weird way. It says reward compliance. But what I mean is, I think it's very easy when you finish your qualification to do like a really big well done, here you go, you've done amazing, buy yourself a little gift or something for having completed it. But I honestly think you need to build well dones into like every single week. When I started, though Tom lost it, I had a sheet of gold stickers like you have in primary school, and I got awarded one a week when I'd done my 8.5 hours. And I also have done it with chocolates. Like I bought a box of roses, and I could have like a roses for every like thousand words I'd managed to get down on paper when I was like writing big dissertation stuff. But I think you have to reward the process, not just the end results, not just like you finished a module, well done, but like reward the fact you're putting the time in week after week, every week. And I think that makes it feel much less endless and a bit less monotonous when you feel like you're like, oh, I've only got another 100 words and then I'll get a sweet. But yeah, hopefully that's been helpful a little bit. I haven't found, like when I was looking, like too much stuff about distance learning apart from quite like dry guides. So I thought I'd just share a couple of my top tips with you today. I hope you're all looking after yourselves, and I'll see you all again soon in my next video. Bye!